folks, with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. This essay, I'd like to talk about judicial activism. It's sort of really percolated to the surface, I think, of any sort of political or judicial watcher going on at the moment in the United States, that there are six pieces of legislation or via executive order that the Trump administration is trying to put into place, and activist judges from activist groups and NGOs, activist attorneys general and so on have got together and successfully put a stay on these policies of the Trump administration. Now, there's a few things concerning. So firstly, some of these judges are rabid activists, rabid anti-Trump activists, and have been for some time and have made personal statements and proclamations that are anti-Trump. Now, should those people be hearing these cases? Yeah, to me, that's quite a clear conflict of interest, and any judge worth a pinch of shit would say, look, I've got a conflict of interest with this. I'd better recuse myself, stand down from hearing the case, and another judge can hear it. But that's not happening. These judges seem to be relishing the idea that they can stick it up Trump and don't care about the implications and how it looks for the independence of the judiciary and the ability of a judge to make decisions based on the law and the evidence and the Constitution and so on. That's certainly not going on here. There's a few sort of pieces to this activism. Firstly, it's going on all around the Western world. The globalists have aggressively moved to put activist judges into all the Britain, Australia, United States, Canada, everywhere, so that a very decent number of judges, a large number, I would say easily more than half, are activists, or they're able to bring pressure to bear on judges that have to stand for election to point out to them, listen, you better make judgments in this or that way, otherwise you got no chance of getting re-elected. So there are issues about pressuring judicial officers there, which also, I believe, need to be investigated. But I guess a few things to understand here. Firstly, the activists are able to get an activist judge to hear to engage in emergency hearing ex parte. That means that the people trying to stop Trump, they can have their day and their say in court and present their documents. But the Trump team or the Trump lawyers or the government lawyers, they don't have a right to respond. So on the basis of just one side filing papers without evidence, the judge will say, look, I'll put a stay on this until now. The stay may not be, pause or whatever. It may not be for long. It may be for a week or something like that, or 3 or 4 days. But the point being that one party can go to court, get an emergency hearing, on a Saturday or midnight on Friday, and they can get an activist judge to hear the case, hear their argument, and then get it signed off. Now they're walking into court with an already written judgment for the activist judge to sign. So it's not as if, it's in my view, brazen collusion between a group of activists who circumvent the will of the government of the United States, the elected government of the United States. Now, most of these judges are judges for life, and they've been appointed by the Biden administration or the Democrats for the sole purpose of inserting activists into the legal system. Now, these are judges that have been, or activists, given the job of judges, that have been schooled in the radicalized politics of social power. So their job is to reshape society, punish the evil straight white Christian white supremacist and reward the black, Hispanic, lesbian, and so on. So everything's about social power. So when the Trump administration is trying to cut back on government waste, then an argument could be, well, if they allowed to cut back on government waste, that means that more marginalized people will lose their jobs than not. So therefore, we want to stay put on this. Well, hold on, how is that against the law? Well, it's not against the law what the administration is trying to do. So vague arguments to do with human rights and marginalised groups and social power and vague references to oppression and these sorts of things. That's enough for an activist judge to go, yep, I'll stop them. I'll stick it up Trump. I'll make sure that literally Hitler guy doesn't get his way, and so on it goes. Now, there are a few things to look at. How is it that these people are able to get activist judges to hear their case? What if they, because it's meant to be like next cab off the rank, which has a lottery effect. You turn up with your case and whichever judge is available hears it. Now, you may not be able to get a judge straight away. It may be a week before you can get a judge, because they have other cases they're working on and have to finish. So it doesn't mean you can just walk in and get a judge, but these people can. They can just come straight in, bingo, and they not only get a judge, they get an activist judge that signs off on whatever they want to do. Now, that just doesn't happen ordinarily. I've been around in contract law, not in this sort of stuff. I've been around contract law and so on for quite a while, and that's not how it works. It just doesn't hurt. You can't just rock on up to a judge and say, this is an emergency. I mean, you have to prove that. But somehow they're able to get to declare, just rocking up at midnight on Friday and get say, this is an emergency. Judge, oh, yeah, okay, emergency. Oh, well, you say so, sure. Emergency because Orange Man bad and he wants to something disadvantaged, oppressed groups. Oh, I'll stop him then. Where do I sign? And it's pretty much as simple as that. And that's, of course, that's the definition of judicial, in my opinion. That's the definition of judicial activism. But it goes, the amount of thought and effort that goes into getting activist judges as well. And Dinesh D'Souza pointed out one of the tactics, which I've noticed previously, but one of the tactics is that you wait until the court, all the judges in the court have gone home. It's the weekend. There are no scheduled cases to be heard in the weekends. All the judges, but they always have or typically anyway, most courts have it like an emergency judge or not an emergency judge, a standby judge. So if there's a mass murderer gets dragged in, the police can get the guy thrown into custody because there's a judge on standby there. So it's meant to be for actual emergencies such as a mass murderer or something like that. So anyway, so they wait until all the judges have gone home, wait until sort of 8 o'clock or midnight or whatever it is. And then that's when the activist judge comes on duty. And they know which activist judge is coming on duty days in advance. How do they know that? No one should know that. That should be, again, a lottery ticket affair, next cab off the rank. But somehow they know. So this clearly, the activists, like the radicals like Letitia James out of New York and, those sort of people, the Fani Willis type people, that means they are in cahoots and collusion with the administrative people, the operations people in the court. And so they can go, can you make sure Judge Billy Bob's on duty there, or who's on duty on Friday night? Judge Billy Bob, good. Okay, so we'll go to that court. We'll go to that court because Judge Billy Bob will sign whatever we put in front of him. All we have to do is say Orange Man bad and he'll sign it. That's all we got to do. We don't have to produce any evidence. And it's ex parte. We say, oh, it's so urgent, it's so important. We didn't have time to tell the other side. And oh, that's okay. Where do I sign? Now, the idea that you can put a stop on what someone else is doing or another party is doing based on the sole representation, the judge, why would a judge even do that? What is the emergency here? There isn't one. Well, not that I can see. Oppressed people will somehow, marginalised people will. What is the legal argument? Is there even one? So they can coordinate around when a judge is available and they're in cahoots and collusion with the court administration officials and the judge to make sure all the doors are. Now, I'm satisfied that judge knows that they're coming, and knows that, well, I better be ready. I better finish my dinner early because they'll be around. I think there's a lot of coordination that goes on there, and that needs to be investigated. Emails, text messages, phone calls, all of this needs to come out because I'm convinced there is a collusion and coordination going on here so they can seamlessly get the outcomes they want. Now, if you contrast this with the Republicans or the other side trying to stop Biden's, stuff going on, like bringing in millions of people into the US without, in contrary to the law, the immigration law, and all this sort of stuff. The Republicans or those trying to prevent that were thorough, almost 100% ineffective. They couldn't get court hearings on anything like short notice. They couldn't get court rulings they wanted. It was a total non-success. Contrast this with how crisp and clean the Democrats and the activists, the globalist activists, are able to get the emergency hearings they want, the judges they want, the judgments they want. Bang, bang, bang. Wow. Don't you wish you could get that? So, so there are other things that they do around coordinating with activist judges. It's judge shopping, it's standard. But again, how do they get these judges to do? Because what they like to do is do it on a Friday, so that the Trump team can't respond sort of the next day, and so the stay can be put in place, which stops operations on the Friday, then into the Monday, and then it's Wednesday, Thursday before the other side is even allowed to present their arguments, and they're presenting those to an activist judge. So what do we need here? You see, it's a difficult one once there's any party involved, such as the globalist controlled Democrats, determined to subvert the legal system. That was never conceived. No one ever thought that your elected representatives would be brazenly and aggressively trying to subvert the legal system. That was never imagined that it would ever happen or could happen, but it has. And already the body is diseased, maybe not beyond recovery, but certainly it's going to need a lot of TLC, a lot of medicine to get it back into where it should be. But the key thing to that is to neutralize activist judges from spreading the mayhem. This is absolutely critical. All across the Western world, this is critical, but in the United States right now in particular. So my view is there needs to be legislation that says that a judge cannot hold up a government policy unless both parties have made a representation. There can't be emergency stays and stops until, again, both parties. Now, a judge can put, say, a 24-hour stop on that I accept until the other party's got a chance. But equally, if there is a conflict of interest, which there is with these judges that are stopping, 5 of the 6 I would rate as radical activists. 1 maybe not so much. But out of the 5, there needs to be you can't make a judgment on this. You have too much of a conflict of interest. You cannot make a judgment. So when such a judge makes a judgment, the other side can immediately counter to neutralize that judgment and say, no, you can't hear that. And then if the other side disagrees, no, we do want that activist judge to hear the case, or the activist judge denies a conflict of interest, then there must be an appeal court process that judge has to go to explain and justify why they should hear that case. Now, you see this, you see it all over Australia, that people who get arrested for, say, spreading mayhem in the city on a climate protest, they frequently are just getting not even I'm assuming they even get arrested, which is a stretch, but they get a slap on the wrist at worst, and most of them are just saying, no problem. Some judges even congratulate them. You're fighting back against Hitler and you're the resistance. I mean, the judges are saying that, for goodness sakes. The judges are meant to be impartial. And here they are congratulating climate activists and letting them go. How did the climate activists get that judge to hear that case? So clearly, again, there's collusion amongst court administration officials, political operatives, the judges, the prosecutors, and some reason the prosecutors make a very half-hearted attempt to get, when they're after a straight white male for something, all the heavy guns get brought out to go get him. But when they're after this prosecuting this climate activist, they'll send the first-year legal trainee along who forgets to file key papers and forgets to put things into evidence and so on, and makes an absolute hash of the case, so that the person easily, it's an easy gig for the judge to say, nah, you're not guilty, off you go. But that's willfully and purposefully done by the prosecutors. So we've got the prosecutors, the judge, the court administration officials, all of them are colluding to make sure that the guy gets off, or the protester or the rioter, whatever it might be, gets off. Not the same when the straight white male got date rape or something. They're after him. They're going to nail him, and will no expense will be spared. Now, you see cases. For example, there's a case recently where a very light brown woman who apparently calls herself black. I'd never have guessed it. I mean, I get that same color of light brown when I'm out in the sun during summer. So the idea that she calls herself black is news to me. But anyway, she says she's black and she's a lesbian. Now, she committed a race hate crime, which white people are locked up for without a second's thought, and that the Department of Prosecutions really goes after them. I mean, really, no expense spared. And yet, in this case, the Department of Prosecution seems so reluctant and so casual and careless with the case that the judge so on side, in my view, so on side with this light brown lesbian, that she got off with. Now it may be that she doesn't even have to pay her own legal costs. So this is insane. But these are the sort of activist things that are going on now. Not long ago, I was at a function where there were a number of judges, and there was a judge that was retiring. I think it was the end of the week. He was retiring. And I wouldn't, just listening to this guy, I wouldn't, hire him to sweep the floor. But anyway, but he's a radical activist. That's indeed is his wife. So his view is that social power, or who has the social power in a legal contest, is vitally important, because you can't be fair, as he says it. You can't be fair until you take into account social power. The facts and the evidence, okay, they're relevant, but the real underwriting relevance of everything is social power, according to him. And so he makes rulings on the basis of social power. He does accept that if the evidence and the law is absolutely ironclad, 110% ironclad in one direction, he will decide that. But if it's 80-20, 70-30, 90-10, then social power, in his view, has to make up the difference. So white men, the patriarchy and white supremacy, I mean, he's on board with all that stuff. And he's a classic sort of radical activist. I wouldn't let him anywhere near a court if it was me, but anyway. But he's very much of that mold. And he's an older guy, but the younger guys coming through, or the younger people coming through being appointed, anyone under the age of 45, the chances are that the vast majority of them are activists. And the people over the age of 45, you're looking at probably a good quarter to a third are activists. So the chances of getting a judge that relies on evidence and the law is actually pretty slim. Now, there are also personal levels of conflict of interest. For example, the guy who says social power should be the main determinant of outcomes. That guy should be, where he's got two people of different levels of social power in a case, the black lesbian versus the white Christian guy, or something like that. He should recuse himself from that debate. Already his activism is going to play a significant, if not a pivotal, decisive role in making a legal judgment. So his activism must be declared, in my view. And he has to prove that he's not an activist to hear a case like that. Now, if it's two black lesbians suing each other, then fine, okay, he can hear that case because social power is not an issue in a case like that. There's a case where two lesbians are suing each other over money. They were both school teachers and both lesbians, and both brown, as I understand it. And the judge made a decision sort of straight down the middle, because, and the judge, I mean, this is again another activist here. You guys, both of you have equal social power. So I can't decide in favor of you against this one because your social power is equal. If your social power wasn't equal, then I couldn't. So this is a monumental corruption of purpose. The judiciary was never designed for this, nor was the legal system designed for this. We've allowed the drift, encouraged and egged on and cheered on by the globalists and their foot soldier goon flunky stooges. They've allowed this to drift. And so this is where we are now. And again, this conflict of interest rule must be brought in, and maybe President Trump could do an executive order on it, or maybe I prefer Congress to do something like this. But the other options are we just ignore judges' orders, or we get rid of the judges, arbitrarily fire them. We don't want any of that. That's not that would solve the major problem today, but it would leave a legacy that would make things much worse. It would mean that any political party or any bunch of goons can come in and go, I don't like that judge's decision, take them out back and shoot them. You don't want that. You want legal oversight on things. That's a very, very desirable thing, but not an activist legal oversight. And this is really the material point. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.